She came storming across the lawn, waving some printed papers and yelling loud enough to wake the dead. "You can't just block the trail. This path belongs to the community," she barked, pointing at the fresh wooden fence I'd installed that morning. I was standing on my own backyard, coffee in hand, barely awake, when she got right in my face. "Remove it now or I'll call the county. Or better, you'll hear from the HOA board." I stayed calm. I didn't flinch. "That's not a trail," I said. "That's a strip of land I legally bought 2 months ago. Check the county records." She blinked, caught off guard, then faked a laugh. "You think you can fool me with fake deeds? I built this neighborhood's trails. I run this place. You're just a tenant." That's when I knew this was more than a misunderstanding. This was Karen. Not just a regular HOA president, no. She was the type who left fake violation notes on mailboxes, fined people for hanging flags, and once told a neighbor's kid to stop laughing too loud on community property. And now she was mad. I shut down her shortcut. 1. She'd used for years to sneak through my yard and into the woods beyond. Too bad for her. That land had quietly changed hands to me. I didn't argue. I just smiled and walked inside. That made her even angrier. Within the hour, 2 more HOA board members were standing near the fence, whispering and pointing. Then Karen knocked, no, banged on my door again, now holding what looked like some official notice. "Final warning," she said. "This trail is protected under HOA bylaws. If you don't remove that barrier by sunset, I'm calling code enforcement." But what she didn't know was this. The trail was never officially recorded. It had been an informal path used for years, but legally, it was private property. Mine now. I had the title, the survey, the transaction record, and a surprise backup no one expected. So I leaned forward, looked her right in the eye, and said, "Karen, you just made a mistake." Her eyes narrowed. "Excuse me?" I held up my phone. "You might want to talk to your lawyer before you start printing fake violation notices, because the last time someone tried this, they ended up testifying in front of a judge." She didn't speak. For the first time, she hesitated. And that's when I knew she'd just started a war she couldn't win. By the next morning, she'd escalated. I woke up to the sound of clanking metal. When I looked outside, 2 men in yellow vests were at the fence with bolt cutters. Karen stood behind them in a ridiculous sun hat and heels, holding a clipboard like she was running a military operation. I rushed out the door. "Hey, what do you think you're doing?" One of the workers looked at me, clearly uncomfortable. "We were told this is HOA property. We're here to remove the obstruction." "Obstruction?" I laughed. "That's my fence on my land. You cut it, and you're committing trespass and destruction of private property." Karen stepped forward, smug as ever. "I issued a community violation order. That gives us the right to enforce access." I pulled out the printed land deed from my pocket. "This isn't community property. It's parcel 47B. Purchased from the city in June. Recorded, certified, not under HOA jurisdiction." She snatched the paper from my hand, skimmed it, then scoffed. "This is fake. Probably something you printed from Google." "You really think I'm that stupid?" I said, stepping closer. "That I'd build a fence without making sure everything was airtight? You think a made-up violation overrides a county-registered deed?" The workers were now backing away slowly. One of them pulled out his phone and whispered something to his partner. Karen noticed the shift. "Don't stop. He's bluffing. This is HOA land." But they were done. One of them looked at me and said, "Sir, we're going to step away until this is sorted out. We don't want legal trouble." Karen shouted after them, but they ignored her. As they walked off, she spun on me. "You think this is over?" I raised an eyebrow. "No, I think this is just beginning." She stormed off again, and I knew what was coming next. Karen didn't lose quietly. She would pull out every dirty trick in the book. She'd try to fake reports, call in favors, twist the law to get her way. But what she didn't realize was she was about to push this way too far, because in less than 24 hours, she'd commit an actual crime, and I'd have every second of it on video. The next day it happened. I was inside reviewing some old security footage when I heard a loud bang at the back fence, followed by the sharp crack of wood splintering. I jumped up, checked the live feed on my phone, and froze. Karen was in my yard, not just peeking over the fence or shouting from the sidewalk, no. She had climbed over the fence with a crowbar in her hand and was prying the boards off like she owned the place. I hit record on every camera angle and stepped outside slowly, phone in hand, staying calm. "What exactly are you doing, Karen?" She didn't stop. She didn't even look at me. "I warned you," she hissed. "You can't block off HOA access. I'm reclaiming this path. If you don't want trouble, go inside." That was it. No more warnings. I walked straight back inside, not out of fear, but because I knew exactly what to do. I called the sheriff's department and calmly said, "I have someone trespassing, armed with a tool, damaging private property. It's all on live video." The dispatcher asked if I felt safe. I said yes. But I added, "Please send a unit. She's the HOA president, and she thinks that gives her legal immunity." Within 10 minutes, a cruiser pulled up. I watched from the front door as the officer walked toward the backyard and found Karen still mid-swing, trying to yank a board loose. She turned, startled. "Oh, thank God you're here," she said quickly, trying to flip the script. "This man is illegally blocking public land. I'm the HOA president. He assaulted our board's authority." The officer didn't even blink. "Ma'am, do you live at this property?" "No, but..." "Are you a licensed contractor?" "No, but I don't need to be. This is HOA protected." "This is not HOA land," the officer said, already holding the printed deed I had emailed the department earlier. "This land was privately purchased 2 months ago. It's recorded with the county. You are trespassing and damaging property." Karen's smile faded. She looked between me and the officer like she'd just swallowed nails. I was just trying to enforce community safety." "With a crowbar?" the officer asked. Then came the line I'll never forget. "Ma'am, drop the tool, step back, and place your hands where I can see them." Karen didn't move at first. She stood frozen. Then slowly she dropped the crowbar to the grass. She didn't speak again. But I didn't smile. I didn't gloat. Because this wasn't the end. Not even close. They didn't arrest her that day. That's what made it worse. The officer gave her a formal trespass warning and let her off with a citation for now. I could see it in his eyes. He wanted to do more, but something was holding him back. Maybe it was politics. Maybe it was because she was president of the HOA and friends with people downtown. Maybe he just didn't want to escalate yet. But I knew Karen. She didn't see that warning as a mercy. She saw it as weakness. And sure enough, the very next morning, a bright red violation notice was taped to my front door. Fake letterhead, bad grammar and all. It claimed I owed $2,700 in emergency HOA fines for unauthorized modifications to common use areas. I laughed so hard I nearly dropped my coffee. She was spiraling. That same afternoon, I got an email from a local real estate agent saying they'd been contacted by the HOA about my home possibly violating easement codes. They offered to help list my property if I was planning to vacate. I wrote back 2 words, "Nice try." But it wasn't just me anymore. A neighbor 2 doors down, widow, sweet lady named Evelyn, knocked on my door later that day. She looked nervous. "Did Karen put a notice on your door too?" she asked, holding up an identical red slip. "I've lived here 30 years. I've never seen anything like this." I invited her in, showed her the footage of Karen trespassing. The legal deed, everything. Her hands trembled as she set the paper down. "I think she's losing it." I nodded slowly. "She doesn't realize she already lost." What Karen didn't know, what none of them knew, was that I wasn't just some quiet guy who built a fence. No, I was something else entirely. Something she never saw coming. I walked into my office, opened a locked cabinet, and pulled out a leather folder. Inside was a sealed letter, signed by the state, and on the top in bold gold letters it read, "Federal Judicial Order, signed by Senior Judge Michael Graves, Whitehurt." That wasn't just my name. That was who I used to be. Karen had just picked a fight with a former federal judge, and I wasn't done building fences. I was about to build a courtroom right in her backyard. I spent the next 48 hours preparing quietly, didn't respond to her fake violations, didn't react when she sent out a mass email to the entire HOA community, calling me a disruptive outsider who was illegally closing community trails and threatening board members. She even attached a grainy photo of herself near my fence, carefully cropped to hide the crowbar in her hand. But while she was busy poisoning public opinion, I was drafting something a little more permanent. On Monday morning, I filed a cease and desist against the HOA for harassment, abuse of power, and unlawful entry. I attached full surveillance footage, deed records, sworn witness statements, including from Evelyn, and a notarized affidavit from the city planner confirming the land was never designated as a trail. Then I filed an emergency motion in county court to seal the disputed trail entrance until a hearing could be held. They called an emergency board meeting that evening. Karen tried to take the stage like a dictator holding court, clipboard in one hand, phony confidence in the other. But this time, I walked in with a file folder and a printed court seal. "You're not on the agenda," she snapped. I ignored her and placed the folder on the table. "You are. You've been served." She scoffed. "I don't accept that." The board treasurer picked up the documents, scanned the first page, and his face changed instantly. "Karen," he said slowly, "this is a court order, signed by a judge." She tried to snatch it back. "It's fake. He's just bluffing." I turned to the room, my voice calm, firm. "Everything you've done the past week, trespassing, property damage, impersonating city enforcement, has been documented and filed. You will not approach my property again. You will not contact me directly. And until the next hearing, that fence stays exactly where it is." Sealed under judicial order. Karen stood frozen. Then I leaned closer, dropped my final card, and said it clearly. "I'm retired now, but for 22 years I served as a federal judge. You brought this to the wrong doorstep." The room went silent. A few board members stared at the floor. One of them, Evelyn's son, actually smiled. Karen's mouth opened, but no sound came out. Just stunned, silent panic. And just like that, the queen of the HOA wasn't ruling anymore. She was running out of moves. Karen disappeared for 3 days. No emails, no porch notes, no drama. The neighborhood felt peaceful. Kids played on driveways. Neighbors waved again. Even Evelyn baked cookies and dropped some off. Joking? Feels like the air's finally clean. But peace never lasts when someone like Karen is losing control. On the 4th morning, I woke up to a convoy of SUVs parked outside my house. 3 black vehicles with tinted windows and orange hazard lights. Men in cheap suits stepped out, flashing badges I didn't recognize. They claimed to be private investigators, contracted by the HOA, conducting an urgent community zoning check. One tried walking toward the sealed trail entrance with a measuring tape. I opened the door, stepped out slowly, and asked, "You got a warrant?" He didn't even hesitate. "Sir, this is routine." "No, it's not," I cut in. "I know federal, state, and county jurisdiction. I know what a real investigator looks like. And I know what it means when a desperate HOA president hires fakes to intimidate a neighbor." I raised my phone, already recording. "You step 1 inch onto that trail and this footage goes straight to the sheriff." They froze. The tallest one spoke up, a little shaky now. "Look, we were told this was a gray area case." "It's not gray," I said, holding up the sealed court order. "It's black and white. It's signed. It's binding, and it's illegal for you to even touch that gate." They backed off, got into their cars, and drove away without another word. 15 minutes later, my phone buzzed. "A blocked number," I answered. Her voice came through low and flat. "No smugness. No threats." "I didn't know who you were," Karen said. "If I had known." "But you didn't care to ask," I replied. "You acted like you owned everything and everyone." "I just wanted things back the way they were," she whispered. I let that hang in the air, then calmly replied, "You should have thought of that before sending fake notices." Cutting my fence and stepping into a judge's yard with a crowbar. Silence. Then, click. I knew what that call really meant. Not an apology. Not remorse. It was fear. She realized this wasn't just some backyard feud anymore. This was legal. This was real. And it was only getting started. Because next week she'd be standing in a courtroom, in front of someone who used to wear the robe. Court day arrived with overcast skies and a packed gallery. Neighbors came. Board members came. Even Evelyn sat in the back, quietly knitting, like she already knew how this would end. Karen walked in late, wearing a pale beige suit like she was attending a tea party. Not a legal hearing. Her lawyer, a young, jittery man, who looked fresh out of law school, clutched a binder that was clearly too thin. I didn't bring a lawyer. Didn't need one. The judge recognized me the moment I stepped forward. "Michael Graves," he said, raising an eyebrow. "Didn't expect to see you on that side of the bench." Just here as a citizen, I replied calmly, though I brought receipts. And oh, I did. I submitted the original property deed stamped by the county, video footage of Karen trespassing and destroying property, audio from the fake investigators admitting they were hired by someone in the HOA, emails, notices, and the phony violation letters, some so sloppy they still had typos in Karen's voice. Her lawyer objected to everything. The judge overruled him every time. At one point, the judge turned to Karen directly. Did you, or did you not, climb over the plaintiff's fence with a crowbar and attempt to remove installed boards? Karen shifted. I was reclaiming access for the community. Were you authorized by any government body to do so? No, but were you aware that the land in question was no longer under HOA jurisdiction? I didn't believe the documents. Belief does not override recorded ownership. Karen's mouth snapped shut. Then the judge turned toward her lawyer and asked a single, brutal question. Would you like to continue this argument or move directly to sanctions? Her lawyer blinked. We're open to resolution. The judge nodded and leaned forward. My ruling is simple. The defendant, Karen Boyd, acting under the authority of the Pine Oak HOA, committed multiple counts of harassment, illegal trespassing, and property damage. The trail entrance is to remain permanently sealed. A restraining order is to be issued, and the HOA will pay damages plus court costs. Gasps rippled across the room. Evelyn stopped knitting and smiled for the first time. But that wasn't the moment that ended her. No, that came next. The judge folded his hands, paused, and added, additionally, I'm forwarding this case for formal review. Misuse of HOA authority, forgery, impersonation of city officials, all potentially criminal. Karen's eyes went wide. Her lawyer whispered something urgently, but it was too late. She wasn't just losing the case. She was losing her title, and maybe more. And as I walked out of the courtroom, past the neighbors and the whispers and the lowered heads of the HOA board, I knew I'd done more than seal a fence. I'd sealed her downfall. It's been 6 weeks since the court ruling. The fence still stands, stronger now, reinforced with steel posts and a legal warning plaque mounted dead center. Private property, court sealed under judicial order, no trespassing. No one's touched it since. Karen resigned from the HOA board 2 days after the hearing. No announcement, no farewell, just a single-line email to the community. Effective immediately. I'm stepping down from my role. Rumor is she's under formal investigation for falsifying documents and misusing HOA funds. The board is scrambling to cover its tracks, and the community has started demanding full audits. People who once whispered behind blinds now wave when I walk by. Evelyn? She joined the new interim HOA committee. First motion she filed? No board member shall act without a vote or violate the rights of homeowners. It passed unanimously. As for me, I never wanted to be the neighborhood's quiet hero. I didn't move here looking for a fight. I just wanted peace, land, a place to build something real. But sometimes to protect what's yours, you have to stand up, even when they call you crazy, even when they send fake cops, even when the entire system feels rigged against you. Because the truth is, this country was built on land, law, and freedom, and no self-appointed tyrant, no matter how loud, entitled, or backed by a clipboard, gets to take that away. One neighbor asked me the other day, "You ever think of running for HOA president?" I just smiled and said, "Nah, I've already judged enough people for one lifetime." Then I turned toward my sealed trail, took a deep breath of clean, quiet air, and closed the gate behind me. I didn't fight for this country to be told I can't protect my own backyard. The end. Subscribe my YouTube channel for more stories.